When life and death hang in the balance, an elite helicopter squadron springs into action, prepared to risk their lives to save others. Yanni, 25, a battle-tested veteran with a wild side. Yidida, a pilot and devoted father with a unique profession. Ravit, a woman struggling to make her mark in a man's world. And Ron, a career officer who faced the ultimate test. Their job is to fly into harm's way, no matter how hostile the conditions, to rescue those in danger, to cheat death. For the first time on screen, this is the inside story of the pilots and crew of Israel's elite search and rescue team, the Blackhawks. Another day of flying is over, and two Blackhawk pilots, Yanni and Yidida, are leaving the squadron to return home to their civilian lives. Although they might share a Blackhawk helicopter, both men share very little outside the base. Yanni lives in Tel Aviv. He is 25 years old and typifies one of the most striking facts about the Israeli Air Force, the youth of its active duty pilots. He is already regarded as one of the more experienced pilots in the squadron, having literally saved the lives of countless people, both soldiers and civilians alike. Tonight, he arrives home from base after his weekly tour of duty and prepares for his usual night outing.
I haven't changed. Not too much. This is the life I had before I joined the army. I come back home, I disconnect, and I'm as a civilian as anyone else. And when I'm in the army, I'm in the army. For me, this double life is quite simple.
Yanni may not fit everyone's idea of a stereotypical helicopter pilot. Unlike most pilots in the Israeli Air Force, who are kept on reserve for times of crisis, Yanni is on active service, which means he must be ready for action 24 hours a day. With the very real prospect of death or incapacitating injury, finding distraction from danger is often the name of the game. Yanni brings to his preparations for a night out something of the same deliberation he brings to a rescue mission. For Yanni, after an arduous week in the air, coming back to Earth is an occasion for celebration.
I work quite hard, wake up early, come back late, so I give myself some perks. I'll compensate myself by going out at night.
Your basic helicopter crew consists of a team of 3, captain, co-pilot, and mechanic, and tonight is no exception. Only now, Yanni settles for more congenial company. Tonight's mission lies closer to home, downtown Tel Aviv, and the rave clubs that have made Israel's largest coastal city one of the trance capitals of the world. On Israel's West Bank, only 45 miles to the east, yet isolated and far from the twilight world of the trance clubs, Yidida is milking his goats.
I love them so much. I do. I'm very attached to each and every one of these goats. I know them not by names, but by numbers, because I ran out of names. I know number 28, and number 86, and I know number 131.
Like Yanni, Yidida flies helicopters in the Blackhawks squadron. But unlike Yanni, who is an active service pilot, Yidida is in the reserves, and most hold down a steady job to make ends meet. He expects to be called up only in times of crisis. However, all reserve pilots must keep up their flying skills and report several times a month for active duty.
Shalom, ילדים.
When Yidida goes to the reserve once a week, it's not easy. At the beginning, I almost told him, leave it for now. We live here now. It's hard enough as it is, taking care of the farm and the security issue. Just tell them you're taking a break until things get a little more stable.
I admire this woman. Without her, all that we have here can be dumped into the garbage.
Yidida, whose name means friend of God, is probably the only rescue pilot in the world that is a shepherd. He settled with his wife and 4 children in the disputed territory of the West Bank. For him, it is the landscape of the Bible and of the Old Testament prophets. This is the bedrock of his personal beliefs.
I see my living here as a small part in the bigger process of the return of the Jewish people to this land. Specifically the Jewish people, and specifically to this land.
The differences between me and Yidida are enormous. At my age, Yidida had kids already. He lives with his ideology on some hill in Sumerian, on the West Bank. I respect it, but we see things totally different from each other.
Despite their differences, Yanni and Yidida are in perfect accord on one aspect of life, their love of flying.
Flying in the evening above the clouds during sunset or above the sea, looking down at the country, it is an incredible feeling.
I've been flying many hours in this helicopter, and still, when I get back from a flight, I am moved. Not everyone can turn up, get a helicopter filled with fuel, fly for 3 hours and not even pay for it.
They might sound romantic, but flying a helicopter would make most people's heads spin. A pilot has to manage 3 controls at once: the hover pedal, the stick, and the collective. Taming the raw power of these multi-million-dollar machines is a challenge. At low altitude and fast speed, there's no margin of error. If the pilot loses concentration for a second, any hill, high power line, or even a tree can cause a lethal crash. Every drive to the base is a trip into the unknown. For Yidida, it is not your average commute. His journey takes him through a land too often in the news for reports of shootings and ambushes.
2 weeks ago, a car stood right here and sprayed a whole load of bullets and escaped into the village.
Yanni's commute to the base is an uneventful 30-minute drive from Tel Aviv.
When I live civilian life on the way to the base, it's really a routine lifestyle by now. It's not something that excites me anymore. On the other hand, you can't help thinking what will happen while you're on alert. Where you will find yourself, even hoping that there will be an interesting and a challenging rescue.
There is, however, one ritual he must perform before entering the base. A ritual that marks his passage from civilian to military life.
That's the way it goes. You arrive at the base and your civilian life is being put on hold.
Once they leave civilian life behind them, Yanni and Yidida enter the unpredictable world of helicopter rescue. A world where nothing may happen for days on end, or where suddenly, unexpectedly, they are catapulted into a situation in which their every decision could mean the difference between life and death.